In this increasingly troubled world, bereft of leadership, our fascination with John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the last independent and free-thinking president of the United States of America, and who was elected when just 43 years old in 1960 and then murdered in 1963, remains an abiding one. In this video, I will consider why his life and times still mean so much to the world today. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, or JFK as he is known the world over, was as flawed as any man. Vigorous self-gratification was always high on his agenda, and JFK was no moral crusader. But in his short life, he showed that personally and politically, he was more courageous than most. JFK's character was tempered by a privileged though demanding upbringing, and his suffering of a number of serious illnesses. But he always showed a steely determination to never let those infirmities define him. Kennedy was a voracious reader, and the time he spent in one sickbed after another helped mould a cool, detached and analytical mind which was taken with world affairs, and which would later rescue the world from the brink of nuclear war. Under the influence of a powerful father and a strict disciplinarian mother, JFK quickly learned that humility and respect, mixed with humour, wit, good grace and charisma, made very good political allies. More than anything, however, JFK learned that we do not always have to accept the conditions of life we find ourselves in. Never free from pain, trouble, or indeed family tragedy, he appreciated that life, though short, was for living to the full, and that self-pity over whatever challenges life presented was largely just a waste of precious time. In the context of the health challenges he experienced as a young man, it is perhaps understandable that Kennedy developed an inclination towards risk-taking. But while he lived life with real zest, some of his favourite poetry, such as Alan Seeger's I Have a Rendezvous with Death, suggest that he had a special sense that his time in this world would be short. Blessed with good looks and a personal magnetism which persuaded and attracted so many people from all walks of life, Kennedy also initiated many dangerous relationships throughout his career, which, in one way or another, were to limit his ability to fulfill his personal and political potential. Over time, there have been many who have profited from the prolonged assassination of Kennedy's character, which began after his death in 1963 and which continues unabated today. And while some elements of that muckraking campaign are indeed grounded in fact, its deeper and darker intent towards suppressing the humane, hopeful and pioneering spirit of JFK has fortunately not succeeded. For history is revealing that JFK was not the careless, silver-tongued carpetbagger who would have eventually led us into World War III. He was no Frank Underwood. He was no Donald Trump, nor were his weaknesses on a par with most of those who eagerly followed him into office. Instead, history records that Kennedy was well aware of his limitations, but also his ultimate responsibilities. Much to the annoyance of his more hawkish generals and their unseen political and corporate sponsors, Kennedy, towards the end of his worldly life, had in fact become a visionary peacemaker. As he surveyed the world and the dark manoeuvrings within his divided office during his final days, he knew global peacemaking had to be his only course. He was learning on the job and from his past mistakes that effective leadership, character and conduct were intrinsically linked, and that his personal weaknesses would sooner rather than later become public liabilities. Kennedy wasn't naive, he was extremely intelligent and he was media savvy, and as he approached the final year of his first term in office, he knew that unless he changed course, impeachment would never be far away in a second term which would have commenced in November 1964. By the fall of 1963, however, the promise of further political greatness in a brave new world still beckoned. But it was not to be. His very public execution in Dallas on the 22nd of November 1963 saw to that. In death, Jack Kennedy's youthful spirit has become eternal. Debonair, brilliant, and brave, JFK is now part of that immortal world which knows not age, weariness, or defeat. His brief shining moment has become an everlasting light in a world which has lost its way. Amid escalating geopolitical tensions, diminishing personal freedoms, and environmental decay, how we could all do with some of Kennedy's courageous leadership and hopefulness today. Thanks for listening. What are your thoughts on JFK? Was he a man more sinned against than sinning? I'm keen to get your views in the comments section below. Please subscribe for further profiles on JFK and other flawed martyrs who have guided humanity's journey towards its ultimate enlightenment.